Welcome to Level Up. I'm Sherelle.
And I'm Danny, and this is the podcast where we talk about health, fitness, and mindset. Today we're talking about body positivity and inclusivity.
This is a very, very trendy topic at the moment. It has been for probably, maybe at least 3 to 5 years, would you say?
Yep.
Before that, I would say that it wasn't. I would say it was quite taboo. Like 5 years ago, it was all like, must look this way, be perfect. Like if you don't fit the standard of X, Y, and Z, then you can't sit with us, mean girl vibe. But the last 3 to 5 years, obviously because of social media and just, the world in general, there has been a massive shift towards body positivity, which, I know a lot of people have different ways of defining this and speaking about it. But to me, body positivity is just including everyone, no matter what age, sex, race, shape, color of skin, body fat percentage, weight, whatever it might be. It's just like not defining you based on a body and just like being open and positive towards whatever your shape is. So that's the way that I define it. And I feel like, as I mentioned, last 3 to 5 years, there has been a massive shift in what society deems as like normal and okay in society today.
Yeah, and body positivity really challenges the societal standards that we may have had placed on us as a kid or even our parents growing up. It's almost the complete opposite in some instances, which can really rub people the wrong way. And today we'll just talk about, the pros and cons. I definitely think there's pros and cons to body positivity. And we say this with a gentle heart as well, but first and foremost, I think it's really important that everyone is feeling included, which is great.
Yeah.
Because I don't know about you, but I've definitely had that feeling of, going back to the mean girl vibes, you can't sit with us, and I'm excluded for looking a certain way or being a certain way. And it's the worst feeling. There is no quicker way to ruin your self-esteem than to be excluded from a group.
And was that, if you don't mind me asking, was that like appearance, skin, weight? Like what were some of those things that you feel like maybe you were discriminated against?
I definitely think, of course, in high school, it's, everyone for themselves type thing, survival of the fittest. But it was at the time where I did have external factors such as my breakouts, braces. I didn't really do my hair. This is probably before I started shaving my legs. Like all the hot, cool girls, they did all that stuff and that grouped them together. But I don't know if it was just because of those things. Obviously, that did play a big part of it. But then that affected my mindset and my energy. Because I'm sure if I walked around confident and so sure of myself, those things wouldn't have mattered as much. But it's a big snowball effect of recognizing like, hey, I'm different to these guys. That is what is deemed good looking. I didn't fit that mold.
Yeah.
So then the feeling of being excluded from the tribe in high school was very much, present and shaped the first part of those years. I've been through that feeling.
Yep. And look, that I would say is the majority, not the minority. I would say that the majority of people have had some sort of lived experience, especially women, because to be honest, like beauty is our form of status. Like women gain status through how beautiful they are. It's why we spend so much money on makeup, skincare, cosmetics, plastic surgery. It's why we put our money where that is. Whereas men tend to gain status through wealth, power, and dominance. And that's why they put their money into like their expensive watches or their cars and less about like beauty. And that's just stereotypical speaking. Obviously there's some men that do that. But, for women, it is a lot, I don't want to say worse, but it's really prevalent, right? And it's hindsight's always great, isn't it? It's like, oh yeah, it taught me how to be strong and blah, blah, blah. But I also think one thing I don't hear a lot of people speak about is the privilege that you have if you haven't had one of those experiences, right? And if you haven't had one of those experiences, you probably have a higher level of confidence and self-esteem in some areas of your life because you've never actually somatically in your body felt what it feels like to feel excluded because of the way that you look. Like comments that maybe someone that hasn't experienced that versus someone that does. Those negative comments might hit a little bit deeper for someone that has had those lived experiences. And I say this because I know like a lot of people do just get on the internet and say like, oh, just be confident. It's like show up as you are. And it's such a privilege to self-esteem is a privilege.
Yeah.
Right? Like not everyone has a high level of confidence and self-esteem. And it's not as, you can't just tell people to like love their body. It's such shit advice, right? Because it's so deeply ingrained in who we are. And it starts from high school. It really does. It starts from high school and all the shit that we're fed on TV, like Mean Girls, like throw it back. When you watch some of those scenes and you're like, heck, that is so toxic. Why did we watch this? This was the norm. We didn't even flinch at some of the things that we watched. But that's just the stuff that we grew up with in the 90s. It's a little bit different now, but there has been a massive shift for the good, obviously.
Yeah, it's funny because obviously that was one of the worst times in my life, but that's what makes us who we are. And I never make fun of anyone's appearance, ever. No matter how many people try and get me to laugh at someone else but then they get pissed off at me because I'm not joining in on their joke. But it's just one of my...
It's so cringe.
I know you're like that too. That's why we're friends and we get along so well. You don't talk like that either. But yeah, it's still very much a thing and it's great. But I'm noticing two shifts. One is the shift of the younger generation who, and I can vouch for this even with, you know, my little cousins and nieces and nephews, they know what Mecca is. They know what a skincare routine is.
$50 on your
God,
like,
they're
eyeliner.
buying skincare products that are so expensive because the TikToker that they follow spoke about going to Mecca and getting all these brands. That is their flex.
Or the 20-year-old that's getting Botox. I'm sort of like,
yeah, that we didn't have that growing up earlier
you...
either, which, you know, part of me wishes I did. But then it's kind of like, wow. So noticing that, the younger generation, but then on the complete opposite scale, noticing the Bonds ad, which is showing someone who's, you know, the underwear brand or Calvin Klein, morbidly obese.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, okay, how do I feel about this?
Do they do that to trigger people? I don't know.
Well, I've got two theories. One, obviously, they're trying to include men and males and females, but let's just talk about the male model that is being placed on a billboard to advertise underwear. Back in our day, they were hot. They had six packs.
Because this applies to men too, right? Where the chiseled abs and all that stuff.
So now I'm using the man as the example. You know, attractive male model, six-pack, fit in shape. Now they're including the complete opposite, really. And not to use the word attractive or not, but someone who's less fit, they're carrying an extra 40 kilos of body weight, but they're being placed on the billboards. The part of me feels good about it in a sense that men who aren't exactly fit still need to wear underwear. So it kind of helps them feel good. But then another part of me is recognizing that we're becoming desensitized to seeing morbidly obese people and accepting that too much. I'm not about making fun of someone or not engaging in conversation with people if they're unfit. You know, they're going through something in their life and that's fine. We all have our reasons. But then I don't think that we just need to accept it and then still not make a healthy change because at the end of the day, to be morbidly obese will lead to heart disease, you know, so many other illnesses and then shorten our lives. So as a society, we're kind of accepting it, which is nice, but then there should be a part two, which is, okay, we still need to start making healthy lifestyle changes, not just accept it full stop.
Yes.
That's my opinion.
Yeah, I completely agree. And look, my thought on a lot of it is the problem that I see is that a lot of the people that do struggle with their weight and that they struggle like maintaining a body composition that is deemed quote unquote healthy, where they're free of disease, good energy, etc. A lot of people do have poor self-esteem and confidence because of that, right? And whether it's because of the weight or not, it's probably not correlated, but it's usually the habits and the choices and the lifestyle promises, whether they keep or don't keep to themselves. So I feel like you can never, regardless of what anyone else thinks, you can't like hate yourself happy, or you can't like love yourself confident. It always has to come from like a place of like keeping the promises to yourself, and not like punishing or shaming yourself to be something that you're not, right? So like, I don't know if this is directly correlated, but from my sense, like just from my coaching lens, a lot of the women that we work with that really struggle to maintain weight loss, or maybe are overweight or obese in that sort of category, they have a negative relationship with food, negative relationship with exercise, and low self-esteem. Now, I don't know the correlation there, but I just feel like it starts quite young, right? It starts like, what is our relationship with moving our body and exercise? How does that contribute to our mental health and how we feel about our body? And I just feel like we're probably attacking the wrong thing for as in the fitness space. It's like we're telling people to lose weight, but I know it sounds so cliche, but what if we taught them to like look after their mindset and that treat their body with love? I know it sounds so cliche, but it's like, I don't know, you just can't like hate yourself happy, and you can't just like, there's that correlation there, and it comes back down to, who do you see on the campaigns? Like the overweight, obese people smiling and laughing, and they're portraying that, like, as you said, like they're super confident, happy and healthy. And we know that sometimes those things aren't necessarily correlated.
Yeah.
But when we look at body positivity, the whole thought of it is like, it doesn't matter no matter what. Right, that's the whole thought. And it's like, well, for who and for what? You know what I mean? Like, who does it matter for? Who doesn't it? Of course, bullying and like excluding, it's not acceptable for anything, anyone, anywhere. We're never, ever going to support that. That's like horrible. It leads to those things. It leads to us misusing exercise and misusing food from a place of control to look a certain way. But I feel like the big shift, as you've mentioned, there is like, it can go the other way.
Yeah.
And it's like, what's the line? Because then what are we reinforcing as well? I don't know. It's so tricky, isn't it?
And no matter who you talk to, they're going to have a different opinion. Yeah. Obviously, we're just observing and playing devil's advocate and going pro and against. But I've been in a body that has been overweight as a kid. Like it was the worst when you had to weigh yourself in front of your classmates.
Why?
I don't know. It was in grade 2.
What for? Like
I don't know.
See, that's fucked.
And that killed me because I was like heavier than most of the whole class.
That's what impacts your relationship within the scales, right? It's like, and then it tells me that I'm overweight and therefore I'm fat. And we know those things aren't correlated, right?
Yeah.
Like just because you're a higher body weight.
Oh, no, but I was overweight.
Yeah, I
like
know,
Red Rooster was my best
there's
mate.
a better way to approach it. Do you know what I mean? Like there's a better way, rather than being like, oh, you're doing something wrong and this is bad, then just eat less. It's like the wrong way of using the tool.
Because I was still a person with a heartbeat and feelings.
And you're a child.
And I was a child. And even whether you're a child or adult, like I'm so grateful for those who were still my friend back then, or even, my parents. And because you're just in a phase of your life and sometimes you don't know that you've gotten to that point, whether you're young or older. So I think we deserve love no matter who we are, no matter what we look like. But we do sometimes need a little bit of tough love.
Yep.
In came my dad, bless him, I love him. I've got a very good relationship with my dad, but he gave me a bit of tough love and said, Danny, we need to start you into tennis. Like this is becoming a bit much.
Yeah, but
But I'm glad that happened too, rather than everyone saying, yay, Danny's the way she is. Because fast forward 20 years, I might be very unhealthy because no one said, hey, like we love you. If they had just accepted me with the full stop and without that part 2, God knows where I would have been now.
Yeah.
So I feel like there still should be those healthy choices that come after the acceptance.
Yeah.
We can accept ourselves through the whole journey, but just because you're having a journey to change yourself doesn't mean that you're not positive about your body.
Yeah.
And I even had someone in an anonymous Q&A reach out saying that she really wants to get breast implants. And I sort of challenged that a little bit and go, okay, good. If you want to get that for you, that's great. But then the part 2 of the question was, but my boyfriend said that if I do get them and make that change, that I'm not body positive and all of that. So it can kind of be used against people where they feel so guilty for making a change to themselves. And obviously implants is quite a big change, but it gets to the point where people are a bit too scared to make changes to themselves because, what about body positivity and things like that?
Yeah. I think you can love yourself and still want to change parts of yourself.
Yes.
Right? Of course. I mean, like that's like saying, oh, well, I'm never going to go through a fat loss phase. And that's like a body positive. But no, like to me, like confidence and feeling confident in your skin is through holding yourself to a standard and keeping promises that you make to yourself, right? And to me, like being healthy and fit is a big part of my identity because like obviously as a nurse, I've seen the opposite and I just fucking never want that. You know what I mean? Such a strong motivator for me is like to never, like my health is my responsibility. Like I take that upon myself. I never want my health or my lack of health to be someone else's responsibility or burden. Like to me, that's important. And I communicate that with the people that I love. I don't want your health like to be someone else's burden. You know, I want you to have control over your own health and it's your responsibility. Like I think we all take control over our own health. And I think that this sounds savage, but I think it's selfish when we don't look after ourselves because it puts that burden onto family, friends, healthcare system. Like it puts the burden elsewhere. And I think people go, oh, self-care is not selfish. Well, the opposite's true, right? Like not taking care of yourself sort of is, right? In a sense. And taking care of yourself looks different for everyone, right? Because you can go to the gym and exercise and eat really good food and still be overweight. And to some degree, that's okay. Do you know what I mean? That's okay. Obesity is a little bit different. Like if you're literally obese, or fall into that category, that has a lot of metabolic consequences, and it's labeled as a disease because of the way it does impact your health. But as I said, there are a lot of people that look after themselves really well that just because they hold an extra little bit of body fat, they're still healthier than the person that's really skinny and underweight because they don't eat enough. Do you know what I mean? Like the actual body fat and body size isn't the thing. It's the way we look after ourselves. It's the way we take care of our body. It's our relationship with food. It's our relationship with exercise, relationship with self.
Yes.
Like all of those things are where the conversation should be, right? Not just about the external. And I think that's honestly where body positivity goes wrong. It's all about the body. It's all about, well, what about everything else? Like the body is the shell and the container of everything else that's on the inside, really. Like it's a reflection of our habits and behaviors and identity more than just what we eat or put in our body. Hey guys, I hope you're enjoying the episode. If you are, make sure that you take a screenshot, upload it to your socials, and don't forget to tag us.
Yeah, because I can't work out whether I'm for or against it in a sense. Like if we really dissect it.
Yeah.
If I had to pick, obviously I'm for body positivity. But again, we're here to look after people and say, hey, we're noticing some people using it as an excuse to not better themselves anymore and just sit there and never make any more positive changes for themselves because of like radical acceptance of themselves, which is nice. But like, they feel guilty to then make that change. But I think that it's nice to have changes that we make inside and out because that's what growth is and evolving and being a human. And we're going to have different values down the track. And there are so many elements that lead us to wanting to make a change. So I think it's robbing us of our full potential if we just accept as is without striving to be more to an extent. And that might be a high achiever part of me talking, but like, I still think that it is nice to accept yourself where you are, but then be okay with also making a change.
Yeah, I agree. And look, I also think that it can be sort of a trap when you attach yourself to just your body in any way anyways, right? Like let's say, I don't know, you just never know what can happen, right? You might be fit, capable and able now, but one day you might not be. So it's not just about like the size of you and how you accept your body, but it's also like what you're capable of at that given time. Because sometimes we just get so fixated on just the external and what it sort of looks like. And that's part of the conversation as well. Don't get me wrong, especially in like marketing and social media and advertisement and those things. But the one thing that I do think that it makes me laugh when I see these actually, there's a guy on Instagram who always does a lot of stitches with people's content. And he's like in more comedy. It's hilarious. But he did this stitch and this guy's like shredded, right? Like this big shredded guy did this stitch of this chick that was like doing a body positivity piece of content. She's got like this. I'm just like dying. So she's got like a crop top on and she's got like a visible six pack, like she's shredded. And then she just like breathes out just like a little bit, but her six pack's still there. And she's like, I look like this. And this, and her six pack's still there, right? And then she's like, and you love yourself, like that sort of content, that body positive. And literally, she looks exactly the fucking same. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like, she looks exactly the same. Anyway, so then this guy stitches it and he's like shredded, like six pack. So he does the same thing and he's like breathes out and he's like, you can too. And I'm like, that's where we get it wrong. That's, people are like advertising that that's sort of what the whole conversation is, so far from the conversation that needs to be had. It's like, body positivity isn't just like whether you love yourself a couple of kilos heavier. It's not body positivity. Body positivity isn't just like the cellulite or the pimples or whatever. It's not just about those sort of things. It's such a broader conversation, but we do get trapped a little bit in just the size. Like, and I know that's the bigger argument because that's the visual one, but I would challenge people to think more about like what's on the inside too that actually contributes to people thinking like themselves about that, because we know that piece of content, why do we think she made that? She feels lonely and wants to be accepted by a tribe. She wants people to say, no, babe, you look good no matter what. You know, people are reaching out trying to, that's their own shit. She needs help, obviously. That's their own shit because they can't even see. Yeah. You know, they're so blind to like that being the thing, you know, and it's just, it's where we get lost.
It's wild, but obviously we love people being encouraged to feel good about themselves. And again, going back on what we were saying, like inclusivity, some people, unfortunately, you know, they're missing a leg or like they've gone through things in their life. I think it's great, like the Paralympics. And I even used to be a ball kid for wheelchair tennis and it's so damn inspiring. But you notice patterns with people, it is their mindset and they're dealt with a situation and, you know, they keep going, and it's nice to include genders and races and all of that. But then on the flip side, like sometimes there's too much emphasis on it. And I'm not going to say anything too controversial for obvious reasons because that's not my place. And I'm just here to sort of be a little bit Switzerland on it. But like, I'm going to be honest. I don't want to piss anyone off. So I'm not going to, I have to just be honest that I don't want to say anything that's too full on. But like, sometimes I just do miss an old 90s rom-com that's your stereotypical bullshit, like of the, you know, the guy falls in love with the girl and then that's all stupid. Like it's light-hearted comedy. You watch some movies now, and look, I'm a fan of movies now, but like anything from 2020 onwards, it's too fluffy. Little bit too woke for my liking. They're trying,
like Barbie.
They're trying. I haven't even watched it. To be honest.
It's pretty funny. Ken's hilarious.
I'll watch it. Maybe. No, I won't. To be honest, I'm not going to watch it because they try a little bit too hard
to be inclusive.
It's just, I don't know. I don't know. There has to be a token of every kind of person to fit the mold, and it's like, why are we becoming so sensitive? And look, I can understand there are people who have not been included for decades and that's cool. But like there is also that fast forward where comedy is ruined. If you're a comedian, you're not allowed to say anything anymore. Yeah. You know, I tried to watch
listen to Summer Carl.
Watching the Wog Boy 3. Yeah. There was nothing in it because they couldn't make fun of ethnics anymore. I'm Greek. I'm gonna openly talk about it. I'm allowed to, but like there was no punchy, funny storylines, you know, like it's just different humor in this day and age. And I'm not enjoying it as much, I'm going to be honest, but maybe that's just my upbringing and I'm a little bit lighthearted about those things, might be a bit ignorant. I'm just noticing it's all getting a bit fluffy for my liking.
No, I do completely agree in terms of some. Yeah, I do feel like, you know, and we've spoken about this, that I do feel like there are elements that we have become a little bit soft.
Yes.
Where when it's quite obvious and, you know, the intent is good, that people are like calling it things that they aren't, whether it's like bullying or discrimination. It's like, no, it's not. Do you know what I mean? Like, just, you know, and then I know there will be people that'll be like, oh, that's not the case. But like, comedy, very different to like obviously bullying, where someone's like, that's not funny. It's like humor is subjective. So like what one person laughs at is very different. So there's obviously got to be like the line there. But I can't get around the like people that care. Do you know what I mean? Like what do you not have bigger problems like to comment on like someone's, you know, reel that's like, you know, doing some humor stuff and be like, that's not funny. Like fucking look at the comments. There's a lot of other people laughing like in there too. So it goes both ways. But do you know what my thought always comes back down to the intent? Like what's the intent of this piece of content? Is it genuinely to tear this person down? Or is it entertainment? Like you said, is it like someone having a laugh? Or like when you look at campaigns, like what's the intent? Like I love Dove's campaigns. I don't know if you've ever seen them. They are so beautiful, so inclusive. Like the intent isn't that they just have, you know, overweight women in their clothes. They don't. They have a mix because discrimination also happens to skinny people.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It goes both
Exactly.
ways. So the intent is to show that bodies are diverse, you know, and it doesn't make you less than or more than. It just sort of is, right? It's a reflection. We detach a little bit. It's just our external. And we've all experienced some form of discrimination that's inappropriate. I do believe, especially women, we've all had comments. Oh, like, you're going to eat all that, or you should watch what you eat, you know, or like, oh, you know, that you must be getting catering on res. I've had that before, you know, like
God.
We've all had comments. Yeah, I know. But then I also think it's like, I am privileged because of my upbringing that I didn't experience a lot of bullying or anything like that. So a lot of those comments are like water off a duck's back for me that I'm like, rightio. Like,
cool. Yeah,
you know, like I'm in control. I just don't have, I haven't had a lot of those experiences. And I know that's also the minority of the world as well, because it happens, right? It's really prevalent. And I think if you're in that camp, you need to know that's the minority and that the majority of people, like, words can hurt.
Yeah.
You know, and I think, you know, the old sticks and stones may break my boat. Like, that's bullshit. Words can really hurt people.
Absolutely.
So we have to be sensitive. And, you know, I'm going to say it, but like, especially for women, because we have been pretty hard done by, you know, whether it's like media or just the way that we are reinforced in the world that we are valuable. You know, our bodies are like big parts of what give women status. And there's also big stages of our lives where we have lack of control over our body in so many ways. And it's very, very, it's a very sensitive time for a lot of women going through those stages where they lose a lot of, you know, who they are, their identity and control and, you know, their identity of who they are. So, yeah it's just, it's never going to be solved.
I don't think it is,
it's
because
not
it's like
to be
pendulumed to the other way.
Yeah.
Hopefully we just find some nice middle ground.
Yep.
Yeah, but I don't know what the next generation, when the 10-year-olds now, when they're our age, you know, 30, I wonder what it's going to be like, because they've grown up with the filters. They already go down to Mecca. Like, I don't know. What do you think it's going to be like, the next generation?
I was watching this on the news the other day. And
started watching the news a lot more.
I watched it once and I was like, never doing that again. It's not the news. It's fucking depressing on here. You know, when you just want to watch something where you're like, oh, my problems are not big.
Yeah.
Turn the news on.
Chuck it on.
And you can see some real world problems.
Yeah.
But I was actually watching, they had a couple of experts, and this just shows how disconnected a lot of people are from the world, talking about the answers to, you know, social media and, you know, mental health and what they were doing in schools. And it is a massive problem. Like, I even know like Luke used to be head of wellbeing at a school, and like some of the stories is like, the bullying doesn't happen at school. Happens at home. So we don't have control of that, but it comes to school, you know, because it all happens offline now. No one punches anyone in the face anymore. Right?
Sometimes you just punch him and
when
it's
we
done.
were at school, it was like, oh, there's a brawl in B block. You
Yeah,
know, like
everyone would run over.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that's better.
It kind of ends it though,
but
then and there.
It was just like, you know, there's so many keyboard warriors and fuckwits online, I'm going to say it, that will say things in the comments that would never say it to your face, ever. That's the problem. As I said, they don't realize the impact of their words. They tear people down, which creates a dysregulated society, because then people get angry and then they attack other people, and it creates this big world problem.
Yeah.
But moral of the story, on the news, they were actually saying that they were talking about bringing in a technology ban for 14 and under for social media.
Yep.
Do you remember in school when iPods got banned?
Oh.
Were you a little bit, I don't know. No.
I don't know if I had that, because I had mine all up through high school.
Really? You're a couple of years older than me. What am
I
I?
graduated 2010.
I can't remember.
You would have been 2012.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I remember in high school, so back in the, God, some people will be young enough to not know what the hell I'm talking about.
iPod
but we used to have like a little iPod with our...
Just music only.
Yeah, just music only, guys, playlists. We used to have games on there. Anyways, you'd put the cord up your shirt.
To hide it.
Yeah, and put it in, but you wouldn't hide it. They were allowed in class for a period of time. You share a headphone. That was a sign
That's
of friendship.
right.
It's like, you want to listen on the bus with me? Yeah, let's go. But yeah, they'll talk. Then they got banned, right? And I remember being like, what do you mean my music's banned? I can't listen to my Akon and Mrs. B? What do you mean? Like, of course we can't. We're not retaining shit. This is why I'm so bad at like anything. Anyways, I remember when they got removed and it was like, you can't do that, all this stuff. But like maybe it worked, right? Like iPods and that. Or smartwatches aren't even allowed really in most exams or anything like that.
I agree with all of that. They should be banned. Why are kids that are 14 looking at TikTok?
Yeah,
and all
well,
the
that's
bullshit?
what I sort of think. I was like, I don't know if that's ever going to really work. Because I feel like we just find our way to do anything when we're teenagers. But I do think that, I watch some stuff online and I'm like, Jesus, that's horrific.
I get triggered by stuff like if world events happen. We're not going to go down that rabbit hole, but there are world events on, or even
just
things
rather not know
in our country, and
horrific.
They're unfiltered.
Yep.
I literally had nightmares from some of the shit I saw, and I'm 30.
I know exactly what you're talking about. We're not going there.
Yeah, but like, where are the filtering?
Yes.
Like, that's what I'm worried about the kids, because they see these things.
I agree.
So early. So I think having some sort of ban or regulations around what the youths can see, that would be nice. Or even, I know there are parent guardian settings you can put on, but I think the best way is just to monitor what people watch if they're youths, but then even for yourself. Like, if you find yourself a little bit more anxious than normal, reflect and say, hey, am I actually spending a bit more time on social media? Who are the people I'm watching? You don't have to go and unfollow everyone, but you can even mute people if they don't make you feel good. Just set some boundaries around that. That's so important.
I agree. And the only other thing that I feel like we have control over is just like educating ourselves and the people that are around us. So, it's not necessarily always just about banning things or removing or restricting. Sometimes it's like, how can we use these things in better ways? Like, how can we educate ourselves that like if someone responds like this or says these things, it's not a reflection of me and it's actually a reflection of them. Right? Like, it's like the boys, like I got bullied in school. It was from boys, right? And now I know. Now I'm like, they just liked me and they ended up hitting on me as a teenager and I was like, So like, it's like, but like I got told that and I was like, why are they so mean to me? Like, we just don't know. But like, I think it's the only thing we actually can control is like what we think about how people respond, because we can't control how people respond to what they say or do, unfortunately. As much as we want to, we can only control our own actions and thoughts. And I think, doing what we can to be as aware as possible when we're as young as possible, to build our self-esteem, to protect our self-esteem, I want to say. We're born with self-esteem, aren't we? Kids, we're confident as hell.
High as
protect it. You know what I mean? Like, we need to do everything in our power to protect it, and that means unfollowing people that trigger you or that like trigger themselves and then trigger you. And like following the right people, consuming the right content, listening to things like podcasts instead of just always like scrolling on TikTok, like actually putting yourself in the environment that's going to contribute to growth rather than like cut you down when maybe you don't feel your best.
Yeah, and face-to-face environments that allow you to feel good. There are communities. That's one good thing about social media. It leads people together to meet up in real life with like-minded interests. So I think, going back to the positivity and inclusivity, it is heading in a really nice way. Again, we want people to feel good about themselves no matter where they are on their journey, no matter where they came from, their upbringing, their values. There are beautiful spaces for people to feel included. But then we are also for the idea of continual self-development and improvement. We accept the way we are, which is great. But don't be afraid to still want to make positive changes in your life. So we need to find our balance of those two worlds.
100% agree. 100% agree. Hope you guys enjoyed today. And just to finish up, like, we know that this is such a big topic and it impacts a lot of people. Like, how we think about ourselves, body positivity, it impacts so many people. You're probably thinking of at least, 3 to 5 people in your circle that would benefit from listening to this and having a little bit of a pep talk. So if anyone comes to mind, make sure that you share the podcast with them and tell them to have a listen and, make sure that they are putting themselves in the right environment, the right headspace to start off their week.
Beautiful. Thanks, everyone. If you're enjoying the podcast, please leave us a 5-star review and hit follow so you can stay up to date with our podcast every week.